By 445 BC, the Jewish people had been back from their Babylonian exile for nearly a century. Yet their ancestral capital, Jerusalem, lay largely in ruins. Its citizens lived in a state of constant terror, completely exposed to violent raids from neighboring territories. 800 miles away, the situation could not be more different. These mud brick foundations belonged to Susa, the heavily fortified winter capital of the Persian Empire. Here, a Jewish exile named Nehemiah lived a life of extreme luxury and security. He wasn't a military general or an architect. He was the king's highly trusted cupbearer, holding a position of intimate access and safety. But that insulated life shatters when travelers arrive from Judah. They bring a devastating report. Jerusalem's remaining walls are broken down, its gates destroyed by fire, and its people are in great distress. In the ancient Persian court, a servant displaying sadness in the king's presence was often considered a threat, an act punishable by death. Yet Nehemiah risks his life, intentionally showing his grief to King Artaxerxes to beg permission to return and rebuild his city. The king's reaction defies expectation. Artaxerxes not only grants the request, but he issues royal letters requisitioning timber and dispatches a heavily armed military escort to ensure Nehemiah reaches Judah safely. Upon arriving in Jerusalem, Nehemiah doesn't immediately announce his presence. Under the cover of darkness, he takes a secret midnight ride around the perimeter to privately inspect the horrifying, overwhelming scale of the rebel. The massive heaps of debris represent more than a construction delay. They are the physical front lines of a regional power struggle. A fortified Jerusalem poses a direct threat to the regional balance of power. The surrounding governors, Sanballat in Samaria, Tobiah in Ammon, and Geshem in Arabia, control lucrative trade routes and refuse to lose their dominance. They launch a campaign of psychological warfare. They publicly mock the Jewish builders, laughing that even a small fox jumping on their flimsy stone walls would cause them to collapse. Nehemiah ignores the taunts. He delegates specific sections of the wall to individual families, allowing them to rebuild the defenses right outside their own front doors. The walls begin to rise at an alarming rate. Panic sets in among the hostile governors. They abandon the mockery and form an alliance to launch sudden, asymmetric guerrilla attacks. Their goal is to slaughter the workers and throw the city into chaos. Rumors of this looming ambush spread rapidly through the workforce. The builders are already exhausted from lifting heavy rubble, and the invisible, constant threat of a sudden attack brings the entire project to the brink of collapse. To keep the project alive, Nehemiah makes a radical, on-the-fly tactical pivot. He divides his entire workforce straight down the middle. From that moment on, half the population continues the grueling labor of building the wall, while the other half stands guard, fully armed with spears, shields, and bows. The site adopts a state of extreme paranoia and readiness. The masons strap swords to their hips while they work. Because the laborers are spread so thin along the perimeter, a dedicated trumpeter shadows Nehemiah everywhere, ready to sound a universal alarm. The commitment becomes absolute, 24 hours a day. The Israelites refuse to take off their clothes, even to sleep. They carry their weapons in hand just to go fetch water. By transforming a vulnerable construction site into a highly disciplined combat encampment, Nehemiah completely neutralizes the enemy's ambush tactics. Desperate, the surrounding governors try one last effort. They send repeated invitations to a fake diplomatic summit to assassinate Nehemiah, and they circulate open letters accusing him of planning a royal rebellion. Nehemiah refuses to stop working. Because he ignores the distractions and maintains absolute focus, the massive stone fortification is completed in a blistering 52 days. For centuries, skeptics doubted this rapid timeline. But in 2007, archaeologist Dr. Wall. Beneath the structure, she found Persian-era dog burials, firmly dating the site. The wall itself was constructed of hastily cobbled, unworked stones, physical proof that matches the biblical account of a rushed, desperate defensive effort. When the surrounding nations hear the wall is finished, their geopolitical dominance shatters. They lose their courage, realizing this impossible feat was achieved with divine help. The physical reality of Jerusalem has entirely changed. The city is finally secure, completely enclosed by an impenetrable stone perimeter. But inside these new walls, the community is fracturing. Nehemiah finds wealthy nobles exploiting the poor through debt, while the ancient laws and traditions that once defined the nation have been largely forgotten. The physical reconstruction was only one phase of the mission. For the city to endure, Nehemiah had to address an internal crisis as dangerous as any external army. Nehemiah passes the leadership baton to Ezra the priest. Ezra convenes a massive assembly, bringing the entire population of men, women, and children together in the city square. Standing on a high wooden platform, Ezra opens the scroll and reads the Law of Moses aloud. Hearing the words, the Israelites realize exactly how far they have strayed from the covenant of their ancestors. A wave of raw emotion sweeps through the crowd. The people begin to weep and mourn loudly as the crushing weight of their historical failures hits them. But Nehemiah and Ezra command the people to wipe their tears. They declare the day holy, urging the crowd to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles with rich food, sweet drinks, and gift-giving. Nehemiah completed the stone perimeter in just 52 days. But his legacy rested on the realization that physical security was only half of the equation. The laws Ezra read that day would provide the structure that held the community together long after the mortar dried.